When I was a kid, around 8 or 9, my parents, I was born and raised in the South, in the North, in New York. My parents were from the South. So my mother was from Alabama, and my father was from Florida. And my father was a successful businessman, so every year he could buy a new Cadillac. And he would drive to Alabama and then Florida during the Christmas break. Nice. And we visit my grandmother on both sides. Grandfather was dead on my mother's side, but my father's side. My father, before he went into, he was, like I said, he owned a store, he owned real estate, and he had a construction company. Before that, he was an amateur boxer, and he was very, muscular, very fit. So I thought my father was the ultimate unbeatable guy. Yeah. We're driving south, and he stops. I'm 8 or 9. I'm in the back of the Cadillac with my sister. He stops at a store in the middle of North Carolina to get us hamburgers. And he went inside, and he came right back. And he got in the car in a huff. And I said, well, where are the hamburgers? And he didn't say anything for about a mile, and he had to admit that they wouldn't sell food to blacks. I never saw my father, the fighter who could, I'd tell all the kids in the neighborhood, my father can beat yours. To see my father humiliated and couldn't do anything, it changed my whole perception of him. And I think as I got older, people never understand the humiliation of seeing your parents emasculated in front of you because of the color of their skin. It's something that affects your psyche that never... Fast forward, a story that's not well known. Many years later, I get a call from a local activist who later became an assembly member who had been in the Black Panthers, a different discipline than me. And he says, a friend of mine who was in the Panthers' son is in jail. And I had run for the Senate then, and people knew I had some inside contacts in the, quote, state establishment. He says, and her son has been thrown in solitary unfairly, and would you help? And I said, help what? He said, help get him out of solitary. And he told me who it was. I said, man, that guy acts wild. He said, well, he's a good guy, good heart, real activist. I said, all right, I'll go. I called the head of prisons, and I said, I want to come to Albany and talk for this kid. And he says, well, tell me where he is and what. I told him the name. He says, oh, no. I said, try to do this for him. He called me back. He said, Reverend, if you will go to the jail, it's in Dannemora, and meet with the warden and talk to the kid and tell the kid to get in the education program to get his GED, his diploma, we'll let him out of solitary. I said, I got to go up to the jail. He says, yeah, there'll be nobody there in the meeting but the warden of the jail. He has a wife. He married a girl for consensual visits, and you and the other activists. And I drove up to Dannemora and met with the prisoner. His name was Tupac Shakur.
Oh.
And I helped him negotiate getting Tupac out of solitary. They let him out. And I told him, I said, man, you're brilliant. He was bright. We spent 2 hours. I said, you ain't nothing like your image on the news. He said, you ain't either. You see how wild they got you. So we got to be pretty good. Wow. I went to see him the second. I told him, I'm going to come back and check on you. Just like 30 years later, I went to see Meek Mill in jail 2 weeks ago. Wow. So the kids would know me with Meek Mill. Yeah, they think Tupac is like Frederick Douglass was. I mean, hey, you get older, life changes. But anyway, so I went back 2 months later to check on Tupac. And when he comes down to the visiting area, they had a private area for him. He said, man, these people crazy. I said, what happened? He says, no, I'm on the celebrity tier, high profile cases. And this guy down the block from me, the cell block from me, said, you go down there to see Al Sharpton? And he says, yeah. He said, that no good so-and-so. I wouldn't be in jail if it wasn't for Al Sharpton. And I said, well, who is the guy? He said, Joey Fama.
Oh, shit.
And I said, Joey Fama's down the cell block? He said, yeah. And he didn't know what Joey Fama was in jail for. Wow. And I told him that guy was convicted for killing Yusuf Hall. He knew the case, but he never connected that it was Joey Fama. Wow. So it's like life goes in circles. Trump was a builder with his father.
Yeah.
And he had been sued for housing discrimination.
Shocker.
So we did not like Trump. We were, Trump was 2 communities away from Howard Beach and was being sued. Well, I march Howard Beach, he's dealing with discrimination. But he wanted to get in to bringing boxing to Atlantic City, where he was building casinos. Don King, who was supporting my youth group and knew me from Jesse Jackson days, told him, the kid that's the hottest boxer right now, getting ready to be champion, is from Brooklyn, and he looks up to Al Sharpton. And if Al Sharpton badmouthed you, it's going to be harder for me to get him to go down Atlantic City and fight. He says, so I need to get you and Sharpton together. Don King calls me and says, I want you to go with me to Atlantic City, down Trump. Down. I said, man, I want to do that. Come on, Rev, blah, 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 I look out for you. So we agree, and I meet them at the heliport in this big black helicopter with Trump on the side. And Donald Trump, Don King, and I fly to Atlantic City, 45-minute flight.
Wow.
And it's surreal. I've never been in a place before where 2 men are talking incessantly over and over about themselves and never stop to hear what the other one's saying. I'm like looking from one to the other. And I say, is this helicopter ever gonna land? You couldn't get a word in there edgewise. And I don't even think they stopped to come up with a new breath. It's just 45 minutes. So I knew then if Donald Trump had been born black, he'd have been Don King. I mean, they were just total self.
Well, they both got gray hair, right?
Right. So Trump, we talk, I'd argue with him and all that about the discrimination. Tyson fought there. I'm on front row every fight because
So Tyson was the guy. You didn't mention the fighter. Tyson was the fighter. Wow.
Mike Tyson was the guy from
Wow.
Brooklyn. Tyson fought Larry Holmes there. He fought Spinks there. And then Central Park case happened.
That's right, okay.
And a white woman, viciously raped, almost killed in Central Park. They coerced 5 young black and Latino boys to say they did it. One of their grandmothers called me, and I'm going to defend them because I didn't see the evidence. And they talked around me like, how can you defend this rapist? Sharpton just hates white people. I just didn't believe these guys did it. They went to jail. And 13 years later, a guy in jail, they're in jail now 13 years. Donald Trump had taken out ads saying they should be killed.
That's right.
They should be given the death penalty. Called them names. So I marched on Donald Trump saying the guy's innocent, how can you call for the death penalty? They got convicted, they did 13 years. A guy in jail says to his jailmate, his cellmate, I really did that. The cellmate told on him. They took him out and did a DNA test, and his DNA matched the clothes and stuff they did there. None of the 5 ever did, but they didn't have DNA then. But later, when they did the matches then, this guy matched, they didn't, and they had to let them out. Even then, Trump said they should not be given money for a lawsuit, and the city settled with him. One of them couldn't get a job for 3 years, named Corey Weiss. I hired him here at National Action Network. He worked for me. So that was when we fell out again. Then he started years later, this whole thing about President Obama, who I worked closely with, wasn't born here. He was born in Kenya, not Hawaii. And by then it started my television show on MSNBC. So I was banging him every night. And he had told his lawyer, Sharpton's calling me a racist. And lawyer called a friend of mine. He says, why is your man calling him a racist? He says, I didn't hear him call him racist. He says what he's saying is racist. Sharpton knows me. We've dealt this, that. He came to my National Action Network convention. He was a Democrat then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's been to my convention. James Brown, who was like a father to me, performed with his. So, he's a businessman. He could do whatever he's got to do. So I went to see him, and I told him, Mr. Trump, I didn't call you a racist. I said what you said is racial. And it is racist, because you're saying these, unlike us. You can't tell me there's not racial overtones. However, we argued, walked away. We'll agree to disagree, but I don't think it's racial. But you didn't call me a racist.